Have you ever noticed how often you feel the need to explain yourself? Not just a casual explanation, but the kind that comes with a subtle panic in your chest. A sense that if you don't justify every choice, every word, every action, somehow the world will turn against you. Maybe it starts small. Sending a text and immediately worrying about how it might be interpreted, adding a dozen clarifications before you even hit send. Or during a conversation, when instead of just stating your opinion, you find yourself rationalizing it, giving context that nobody asked for, apologizing preemptively for taking up space. You don't even notice it, but it has become a habit, a reflex you've learned over the years, almost like breathing. It's exhausting, isn't it? To constantly measure your words, to anticipate judgment before it even arrives. And yet, somehow, despite doing all of this, the fear never goes away. You still feel under scrutiny. You still worry that someone will misunderstand you or think less of you. That little voice inside keeps whispering, maybe I should explain again, just to be safe. And here's the thing, you're not alone. Almost everyone does this. We live in a world that rewards compliance and clarity, where being understood is often treated as a form of validation. The subtle pressure to constantly justify ourselves is baked into our culture. And it's sneaky because it doesn't feel like pressure at first. It feels like responsibility. I owe them an explanation, we tell ourselves. But slowly, over time, that responsibility becomes a burden. Every choice you make becomes a negotiation with an invisible jury, and instead of living freely, you are constantly in defense mode. Take a moment and think about the last time you felt this way. Maybe it was at work, when you had to defend a decision you made, explaining your reasoning in painstaking detail, hoping your colleagues wouldn't think you were wrong. Or perhaps it was with friends or family, where harmless choice, what you wore, what you ate, the way you spent your weekend, turned into a mini exploration of your character, as if you needed permission to exist exactly as you are. And in that moment, you didn't just feel judged, you felt small. And yet, there's a deeper, quieter layer to this habit that most people don't talk about. Explaining ourselves incessantly isn't just about other people, it's about us. It's about the way we doubt ourselves, the way we measure our worth against how others perceive us. We have been trained to believe that our decisions, our preferences, our identities need approval. Somewhere deep inside, we've internalized the belief that if others don't understand us, we aren't enough. That if someone questions our choice, it proves we are flawed. This is where the emotional weight comes in. Every time you start explaining yourself unnecessarily, it chips away at your confidence. You may not realize it, but that small moment of defensiveness slowly accumulates, like a hidden debt that grows heavier each day. And the irony? The people who notice you explaining yourself the most are not always the people who matter. In fact, often, they are strangers, casual acquaintances, or critics who would judge you no matter what. And yet you bend over backward for their understanding anyway. Here's something even more important. Explaining doesn't make you more understood. Sometimes, the more you justify, the less confident you appear. Because there's power in quiet conviction, in standing by your choices without needing to defend them. Confident people don't rush to explain. They don't feel the urge to justify their existence, their decisions, or their values. They move through life with an unshakable sense of self, and that stillness communicates more than words ever could. But right now, if you're listening, you may not feel that confidence. And that's okay. That's exactly why we're here. Because the first step isn't to stop explaining yourself immediately. It's to notice the pattern. To catch yourself in those moments of over-explanation and understand the emotional trigger behind it. Why are you doing it? Is it fear, doubt, or a desperate hope for approval? Once you can answer that honestly, you begin to reclaim your power. And let's be real. There's a freedom waiting for you on the other side of this habit. A freedom where you no longer bend, justify, or apologize for your choices unnecessarily. A freedom where people either understand you or they don't, and you're perfectly fine either way. Imagine the weight lifting off your shoulders, the mental energy you reclaim, the confidence that begins to ripple through everything you do simply because you no longer feel compelled to constantly defend yourself. So, take a deep breath. Notice the last time you explained yourself when you didn't need to. Feel the tension in your chest, the subtle anxiety in your stomach. Recognize it. Name it. And know this. The urge to explain is not a flaw. It's a signal. It's your mind telling you where your confidence has been borrowed from the wrong sources. And the good news? That confidence can be rebuilt, recentered, and reclaimed. Because what we're about to uncover isn't just a strategy for talking less or defending yourself less. It's a mindset shift, a psychological secret that confident people have mastered for years. A secret that allows them to move through life unapologetically, with clarity, conviction, and inner peace. And once you see it, you'll wonder why no one told you this sooner. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself why we over-explain in the first place? It's not just a bad habit. It's a deeply ingrained psychological pattern. Most of us don't even notice it because it has been trained into us since childhood. From the moment we were little, we learned that approval equals safety. You remember the subtle lessons, don't you? Praise when you behaved correctly, correction when you didn't. Compliments for doing what was expected, subtle disapproval when you stepped outside the invisible lines. Over time, these small reinforcements build a kind of internal algorithm. If I want to be safe, accepted, loved, I must justify my choices. I must explain myself. As we grew older, the stakes shifted but the pattern remained. In school, it was teachers and classmates. Later, it became friends, co-workers, bosses, and even strangers on social media. Every interaction carried a hidden barometer. How well do they understand me? How will they judge me? And somewhere along the way, we learned to preemptively defend ourselves to control the narrative. Because the thought of someone misunderstanding us, the thought of being seen as flawed, lazy, unworthy, it's terrifying. This is the first layer of the trap, the fear of judgment. It's subtle but powerful. You might tell yourself, I'm just being polite. I'm just being clear. But underneath, it's almost always fear. Fear that people will think less of you. Fear that they won't understand you. Fear that your value is conditional. And fear, as you know, is one of the most persuasive motivators. It pushes you to over-explain, to clarify, to justify, to apologize before anyone even points a finger. Then there's the social comparison factor. We live in a world that constantly measures worth in likes, comments, promotions, and approvals. Someone else has it better, someone else is doing it right, and suddenly, our choices feel inadequate unless we can explain them convincingly. I didn't choose X because it's wrong. I chose Y because it makes sense. See, that need to measure up and prove yourself subtly erodes confidence and makes over-explaining seem necessary. And it doesn't end there. There's a deeper, emotional layer, the need for connection. We all want to be seen, heard, and understood. But when this desire becomes intertwined with insecurity, it can lead to a constant state of negotiation. Every word you speak, every action you take becomes a tiny effort to gain validation. It's exhausting because validation is fleeting, inconsistent, and often outside your control. You can explain endlessly, yet there is no guarantee someone will see you the way you want to be seen. Let me give you an example. Imagine two people at a meeting. Person A constantly explains every decision they make. They give context, justify their reasoning, clarify assumptions, and preempt objections. At first, it seems thorough, maybe even impressive. But by the end, others are left with a subtle impression of insecurity. It's as if person A doesn't truly trust themselves, so they hope someone else will. Person B, on the other hand, states their decision simply and clearly. They trust their judgment and deliver it without a rush to defend. Their tone is confident, their body language grounded, their presence steady. People may still question, but there's a quiet authority about person B that invites respect instead of scrutiny. The difference isn't knowledge, it's belief. Belief in oneself, belief in the rightness of one's choices, belief that explanation is optional, not required. This contrast is at the heart of why we over-explain. It's not knowledge we lack, it's self-trust. Over-explaining is a symptom, not a cause. It reveals where our confidence has been borrowed from the wrong sources: approval, comparison, fear of judgment. And the frustrating part is that no amount of explanation will ever fill that gap. You can justify, clarify, and rationalize, but until you address the underlying insecurity, the cycle will continue. And here's where it gets tricky. Over-explaining can even backfire emotionally. Every time you justify yourself unnecessarily, you reinforce the idea that your worth depends on external validation. Each explanation chips away at your confidence until the pattern feels unavoidable. And the sad irony? The people who notice you explaining yourself the most often don't matter. They are critics, bystanders, or people who would judge you no matter what. Yet you give them power over your peace, power over your choices, power over your confidence. But recognizing this pattern is where change begins. The moment you see that over-explaining is rooted in fear, comparison, and the need for validation, you gain clarity. Awareness is the first step toward breaking the cycle. And once you notice the triggers, the situations, the people, the insecurities, you can start to reclaim your mental and emotional energy. You can start to choose where your trust belongs, in yourself. Because here's the truth. Confidence isn't about convincing others. Confidence is about trusting your own judgment and decisions. It's about knowing that whether someone understands you or not does not determine your value. It's about realizing that your inner authority is enough, that your choices do not need an audience to be valid. Once this shift occurs, over-explaining becomes unnecessary. It simply falls away, replaced by a quiet clarity and a grounded presence. And that, in a way, is liberating. It's the realization that you've been living for external approval when the only one you ever truly needed to satisfy was yourself. The moment you understand that, the tension in your chest eases, the anxiety around every word dissipates, and you begin to feel an unfamiliar kind of freedom. The freedom to act without apology, to choose without explanation, to simply be. So take a moment now to reflect. Notice the last time you over-explained. Recognize the fear, the comparison, the need for validation. And know this, it's not your fault. It's a pattern many people fall into because it's reinforced by society, culture, and childhood. But now, because you see it, you have a choice. You have the power to change. You can decide to step out of this cycle and reclaim your confidence. The kind of confidence that doesn't need an explanation, that doesn't bend for judgment, that simply exists. Imagine a life where you no longer feel compelled to explain every choice you make. A life where your decisions, your preferences, your identity don't need constant validation from others. That life isn't just a fantasy. It's exactly what confident people experience every day. And here's the secret. Real confidence is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't plead for understanding. It simply exists. You see, the people who never feel the need to explain themselves understand something crucial. Approval is optional, but self-respect is mandatory. They don't waste energy convincing others that they're right. They don't bend, twist, or rationalize to make someone else comfortable. Their power comes from a deep, unshakable trust in themselves. And this trust? It's not about arrogance or pretending to be invulnerable. It's about alignment, living in accordance with their values, decisions, and priorities, no matter what anyone else thinks. Let's break down what this actually looks like in real life. Imagine you're at work, presenting an idea. Most people rush to justify every detail, anticipating objections, explaining their thought process, even apologizing for taking a bold stance. Confident people? They present the idea clearly, answer questions concisely, and move on. They know their reasoning is sound, and they don't need to convince anyone else. Their presence communicates authority and clarity far more than any long explanation ever could. And it's not just at work. Think about social situations, personal relationships, or family dynamics. Confident people don't waste words defending their choices. They set boundaries without feeling guilty. They say no without over-explaining. They express preferences without fearing judgment. And when someone questions them, they respond with calm clarity rather than panic. This is my choice, or I'm comfortable with this. Simple, clear, grounded. No apology required. Now, here's where the mindset shift comes in, because this isn't just a matter of acting differently, it's a psychological reset. Most people operate from a place of fear of misunderstanding. Confident people operate from a place of trust in themselves. They understand that external approval is fleeting, unreliable, and often irrelevant. What matters is their own alignment with their values and decisions. When you trust yourself, the need to explain evaporates naturally, because you no longer rely on others to validate your choices. This shift can be broken down into a few practical steps. State, don't justify. Learn to make declarative statements instead of explaining every nuance. "I've decided to do X" is enough. There is no need to provide a 10-point justification. When you do this, you project confidence and reduce mental clutter. Pause before responding. Silence can feel uncomfortable at first, but it's powerful. Confident people often pause before answering, giving themselves space to choose whether an explanation is actually necessary. Often, it's not. Replace apology with clarity. Stop apologizing for your choices unnecessarily. Instead of saying, "I'm sorry, but I think we should do it this way," try, "I've considered it carefully, and this is the approach I believe is best." It conveys authority without aggression. Set boundaries without explaining. When someone crosses your line, simply state your boundary. For example, "I'm not available for this right now." No justification needed. Boundaries are statements of self-respect, not negotiation points. Detach from outcomes. Confident people understand that they cannot control how others perceive them. Their focus is on their own actions and integrity, not on convincing anyone else. This detachment is freeing because it removes the invisible pressure to explain or rationalize endlessly. Let's illustrate this with a story. Imagine a person who used to constantly explain their decisions. Every dinner choice, every minor work decision, every text message felt like a trial where they had to justify themselves. Anxiety became a constant companion. Then, slowly, they started practicing these small mindset shifts. They paused before over-explaining, stated choices clearly, set boundaries without apology, and stopped seeking constant validation. The change was subtle at first, but powerful. Colleagues started respecting their opinions more, friends began trusting their decisiveness, and most importantly, they began trusting themselves. The heavy burden of constant explanation lifted, leaving behind clarity, calm, and confidence. And here's the key takeaway. Confident people don't do less because they are selfish or detached. They do less because they value their energy and presence. Every word spoken is intentional, every action deliberate, and every decision grounded in self-trust. They don't need to justify themselves because justification implies a lack of confidence. And once you understand this, it's not about pretending to be confident. It's about cultivating a mindset where self-trust becomes your default setting. This is the secret shift. From explaining to trusting. From justifying to aligning. From seeking approval to owning your choices. And it works in every area of life. Work, relationships, friendships, even how you carry yourself in public. When you stop chasing understanding, the world stops questioning your worth. People notice your presence, your decisiveness, and your grounded energy without a single word of explanation. So, start small. The next time you feel the urge to over-explain, pause. Ask yourself, do I actually need to justify this, or am I trying to gain approval? If it's the latter, take a deep breath, trust yourself, and simply state your choice. Notice the shift, the subtle nods, the way people respond differently, and most importantly, the quiet confidence that begins to build inside you. Because once this secret becomes second nature, life changes. You no longer carry the weight of constant justification. You move through the world unapologetically, grounded, and aligned. People may still judge, question, or misunderstand, but it no longer affects your inner peace. And that is the ultimate power of silent confidence, freedom, clarity, and an unshakable sense of self. From this moment on, stop apologizing for being yourself. Stop over-explaining, stop bending for approval, and stop letting others dictate your confidence. Your choices, your actions, your values, they are yours, and they don't require permission or justification. Step into the quiet power of self-trust, where clarity replaces anxiety and alignment replaces doubt. Every time you pause before explaining, every time you state your choice without apology, you reclaim a piece of your freedom. Live unapologetically, move decisively, and let your confidence speak louder than any words ever could.